Cool. Thanks for the intro again. So I'm Brett Fromm with the Three Rivers Park District as a GS administrator. And Amanda Hubert also has been integral with all the stuff that I'm going to be talking about here. So feel free to put any questions forth to either one of us. I'm presenting today on Three Rivers Park District's use of 360 cameras and 3D cameras, or you could call it laser scanners. So I was originally going to do this for the GIS LIS conference, but unfortunately I'm not able to go. But thankfully I can present it here to you all right now. So presentation is going from 0 to 360, bringing our organization up to speed with 360 and 3D camera technology. So I just have some Fast and the Furious gifts in here because I wanted to bring a theme to this presentation, but I'm going to essentially be bringing you through the journey that our organization took with 360 cameras and what we have learned from it. And then to start stuff off, I'm going to do some background on the original reason why we started to look at this. So a little bit about Three Rivers Park District. We have 27,000 acres of parks and trails here in the metro area. We're kind of spread out over 5 different counties: Hennepin, Scott, Ramsey, and we have a number of different departments. So it gives us a nice variety in our work. So we got forestry, water resources, wildlife, maintenance, engineering, planning, and some more, most of which are using GIS in some degree. And we have a variety of amenities too at our park district. So golf courses, ski hills, working farm, nursery, a dam. So the problems that we were having that kind of started this journey is that we have a lot of facilities and assets that we want to track at those facilities and parks. This has kind of gone hand in hand with growth within Cartograph. So we have more interest from different work groups looking to collect things in Cartograph. We constantly purchasing new properties and doing construction. So we need to constantly be updating things. And with Cartograph and interest in new work groups, we have lots of people that are interested in collecting their own data. And I mean, that makes it easier for us in the GIS department, so we don't have to do the collecting for them. Another problem, these are kind of problems, but also it's also a good thing, some of this growth. It's just that we need a way to manage it. But yeah, everything is fairly spread out. Like I said, we're spread out between 5 different counties. So it's not the easiest thing to be able to go out to them all the time. I mostly have desk duty jobs, so I don't always have time to go out. Another problem, but also a good thing, we're frequently asked to make tour-like applications for people. And there's only so much that we can do without expanding into camera technology. We can make story maps and stuff like that, but if we don't have those really cool images to pop into them, and then over the last 4 years or so, we've been working on redesigning our base map, but that level of detail ends at the roof of the building, and it would be really useful to be able to go a little bit further, have the rooms and things that you can assign assets to in Cartograph and whatnot. So things that we were observing at the time, this would be back in like 2017. A lot of new camera technology was coming out, aimed at consumers and professionals. New companies are popping up all the time that are offering virtual tour-like experiences. And then just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, each time I use a word like traditional camera, 360 camera, 3D camera, drone, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Traditional being a traditional point and shoot camera from your phone, or a digital camera. 360 being that you have that full panoramic around you when you're taking a picture. 3D is those laser scanners that have built-in cameras in them. And then drones with cameras on them. We will mostly be focusing on 360 and 3D cameras because that's what we've had time and money to actually invest in. And then some like Reavers Park District staff, we're not, I mean, the GIS staff, I guess, we're not experts in camera technology. I don't use digital cameras in my day-to-day life. I don't know all that much about them, but it's just through years of experimentation, uh, we've learned how to use these for our use cases. And this is not purely a GIS task. Uh, we've just kind of taken an initiative for our organization because we had the know-how to implement it, and we saw a lot of benefits that would directly impact our department and the organization as a whole. And then just to point out, we're not currently using drones or aerial cameras. We want to. We're not currently doing it, though. We're only using terrestrial cameras and scanners. And then after looking at all those new cameras and virtual tour companies that were popping up, these are the kind of generalized use cases that we came up with to justify our interest in using the technology and to start using it and looking into it. So some of the use cases we came up with is documentation. This is something very familiar probably to you all, just a visual of an asset, a visual of a surrounding area, recording something at a certain time. We're all probably familiar with that, just with points and attachments in GIS databases. And then tours, so we want to be able to create guided or an open, free-flowing experience for a tour, or being able to stitch something together. So that would probably maybe be like using a story map to stitch together photos that we've gotten together, and yeah, making it cohesive with just directly putting a photo in story map or embedding a 360 viewer or something like that into a story map. And then data outputs that we saw that could be useful is point cloud data for potential analysis that we could do down the road, 3D meshes for visualizing areas, maybe to make a 3D base map one day, floor plans, just to potentially make a more simplified version of a floor plan than the as-builts we have at our organization, and to potentially bring that data into GIS. And then just the metadata that you're getting from the camera itself, or if you're using AI, deep learning workflows to extract features. Essentially, yeah, that's what we kind of thought of and justified our interest in looking into this all. And just a heads up, I'll obviously have time for questions at the end here. And then next section, so 0 to 360 in 6 years. So we started in 2017, and I'm gonna be showcasing where we're at now in 2023. So 6 years may seem like a long time, but in reality, we have been releasing things as we finish them to our staff. And it is only, but in the year 2023, I feel like we've accomplished the majority of our goals. So the 6 years is works. So we'll jump into that and what those goals actually were and how we got started. So our overall goals were to enhance the data we provide to our organization, but also make it easier for staff to access, make data collection more efficient. So if we're going to be GPSing a trail, if I can attach a 360 camera to my head and take a ton of pictures while I'm out there, then that's going to be more useful than just doing one thing or the other. Developing a way to create virtual tours for staff that go above and beyond what we were currently doing. And then the strategy essentially boils down to capture everything. So 3D scan all of our facilities, that's 400 plus facilities. Create virtual tours for outdoor spaces, so group camps, campgrounds, picnic areas. And then our goal is to get 360 images of every trail and road that we have. So 450 miles of trails. I didn't grab a number for roads, but it's a good amount of stuff that we need to collect. And these are the kind of the choices that we had as we were looking into vendors and how we were actually going to do this. So you can do everything yourself, you can pay for everything, or you can try to find like a middle ground. So if you're doing it yourself, you're directly working with the cameras, you're organizing all of the data after you collect it, and you're creating the interface yourself that people will use to interact with your images and data. Or you can do pay for everything, where you're hiring someone to do the data collection, and then you're also paying a vendor to host your data and providing that interface. Or somewhere in the middle, you're doing the data collection, but you're also paying someone to host the data and provide the interface. So as we go through, you'll see that we kind of chose to do a little bit of do everything yourself and a little bit of somewhere in the middle. So I'll dive into that. So how we started, so the left side is 360 cameras and the right side is 3D cameras. So for 360 cameras, we started off by purchasing a cheap little LG 360 camera. We collected images and published through an app called Mapillary, which is a free service that's owned by Meta now. So they're getting stuff out of it. It's not free, but you don't have to pay for it. And we were testing out with embedding those 360 images into story maps. As for 3D scanners, we purchased a Matterport Pro 2 camera. We got a basic Matterport subscription. So this isn't what we paid, but this is just a generalization of what you might expect to pay for different plans. So you could pay for like a $10 a month plan or $200 a month or more. And that will give you like, you can have 5 active virtual tours, like on the cheapest plan. And then like on the most expensive plan, you can have 300 or more active virtual tours. And then, yeah, to start the whole thing off, we scanned a few buildings, small buildings, and then we kind of just purchased the data products that you can get from Matterport to see what they look like. So for capturing facilities and outdoor spaces, we did end up sticking with Matterport. I'll go into the pros and cons, but essentially it works really well. It's easy to train and use these cameras. Essentially, you set up a camera with a tripod. The camera is on the front, or the actual thing that's taking photos is on the front, and then there's nothing in the back. So it kind of swivels around, and then you kind of hide behind the camera as it swivels, or you can go around a corner and hide like that. And that illustration in the bottom left kind of shows how you approach a space. You essentially take a photo every 10 feet or so until you get the amount of data that you're looking for. And you can kind of see on the image on the right, as you're scanning, it'll show you everything that you've kind of collected. So you'll be able to kind of see shadows of areas you haven't collected yet. So if there's like a car or something that's blocking you in a garage, you'll see that there's a big shadow behind that car. So you'd want to do some additional images behind that. But on the center one, you can kind of see what a floor plan looks like. It's really simplified. You might be thinking, where have I heard the term Matterport? Well, it's used by a lot of realtors. That's kind of how we discovered it. So the product is mostly tailored for realtors and buildings. It's not, yeah, and I'll go into those pros and cons in a second. So as I said, we kind of started with the Matterport Pro 2 cameras and then moved on from there. I've only got the negatives listed here, but essentially we started off Pro 2 and it served us quite well, except we weren't able to scan outside unless it was a really cloudy day. The scanning just did not work. So then we tried to bring in like a BLK camera. With that, we were able to scan outside. But as you can see on some of the stuff that I listed here, it's very slow. It takes like maybe 3 or more minutes to do a single scan. And if there was any bright sun at all, it would ruin the image quality. So that was kind of a disappointment, but just this year, Matterport released another camera called the Pro 3. It can scan outside. So that's awesome. It's the same speed as the Pro 2. So that's like it's like a 12, 15 second time for each scan. It can scan a lot farther than the original Pro 2, so you don't have to do as many scans. And yeah, we're pretty happy with it. There's like a very simple GPS in it, and the only thing Matterport does is it takes the GPS of the very first scan just so that it can get a rough area. Unfortunately, it does not record the GPS of coordinates of every single scan. So what have we kind of seen from this process? So pros and cons. So we found that Matterport can create extremely high quality virtual tours, and that's kind of why we've stuck with it. And there's a lot of customization with that. It has a relatively low entry point. You can, with different camera options, so you can like pay for those higher tier cameras that we've been kind of playing with, but you can also just use your phone or a cheap 360 camera. And I mean, we haven't done too much with it, but I know people use it. So yeah. And then they're continually improving their tours, which we appreciate, and their data product offerings, and yeah, the new camera, which is nice. So they are providing E57 files now and Google Street View integration, so you can publish straight to Google Street View. Those have been some nice improvements. Cons, though, is that you need to purchase everything. So on top of the subscription that you're paying for yearly, you need to pay for a floor plan. So essentially, you just hit a purchase button and then it auto generates the floor plan based on the data that you collected. But you never have the raw data that you're capturing with your camera. It all goes to Matterport, and then you can purchase from there. Thankfully, they now have E57 files, so you can kind of get close to like raw scans with purchasing that, but yeah, you still got to purchase it. It's not very well suited for bringing data into GIS. We're currently trying to bring the floor plans into GIS, but there's nothing to georeference off of, and they seemingly have no interest in helping us improve that workflow. It's also not very well suited for analysis heavy workflows. Like I said, it's a company that's mostly tailored for the realtors, and I don't know. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to change course once you start scanning things. If you were to ever stop and you want to use a different product, well, then you're going to lose all those virtual tours. You can get that E57 now, and maybe you could import that into a different vendor's software, but yeah, once you start, it's going to be difficult to change unless you're okay losing all of those virtual tours. And then for trails and roads, like we said, we wanted to capture 450 miles of trails. So we did end up trying a lot of different ideas and products, from Mapillary to a product called Penellum, which is just a 360 image viewer. And then Esri has been developing oriented imagery for the last few years. I think they still have a while to go. It's mostly tailored to drones, but it's improving every year. So, but our main goals have kind of been that it's flexible, we have full control over the images, and it's inexpensive. So these are the kind of the three that we've kind of been playing with. But yeah, for how we kind of approach it, we decided to just kind of organize everything ourselves into a GIS database, and then we'll kind of just expand from there. So we currently have over 100,000 images organized by sequences. So at the bottom, you'll see here, I do sequences with my 360 camera on my bicycle helmet or with volunteers doing it for me. It's extremely useful to get volunteers. But having that GoPro on my head and taking a photo every 2 seconds. So a sequence is essentially just that time lapse time period that I'm taking photos every second. It's nice to organize them by sequences. And I'm essentially using Python to help organize everything. So this is the progression we kind of made with the 360s. Again, only the negatives are listed here, but I'll kind of go through the positives. With the LG 360 camera, we learned very quickly that you're gonna want built-in GPS into your camera. With the LG 360, we were dependent on using the Mapillary app to record GPS, and then you can upload directly from there. But it just doesn't give you a lot of freedom to work like that. Not easy. And then we kind of tried this, what was new at the time, the GoPro Fusion camera, which worked really well. It had built-in GPS, so you could get all that metadata that you're looking for. But fortunately, the GPS was unreliable, and if it just didn't work, it just did not write the XY data to your JPEGs, which was really annoying when you do hours of collection, then you get back, and then none of it is useful. And then it also had a really tedious stitching workflow. So there's cameras on both sides. So there's one camera in front, one on the back, and then you have to bring it into their really horrible software and stitch it all together. And I'm still stitching photos from 2020, so that will tell you how annoying it is to do. Thankfully, GoPro released another camera called the GoPro Max. I have never had an instance where the GPS has failed. I mean, it's not all that accurate, but it has not failed on me. And it stitches the photos automatically. So the second a photo is taken, it stitches it automatically. It's pretty inexpensive, and you can get it into the hands of a lot of people, like volunteers, to go collect that data for you. Some of the things that we've learned through time is that GoPro is not leveling the horizons for photos. They do it for videos, which is why I thought they would do it for photos, but they're not. GoPro obviously has prioritizes videos more. So horizon leveling, if you don't know what that is, and I only learned through trial and error, is like, so if you have your GoPro like tilted, like, so imagine it's on my head and I have my head tilted, so it's taking photos like that. And if you bring it into a 360 viewer, you're going to be, if you try to scroll left and right, the images are going to scroll like in that diagonal view instead of like what you would think is where like turning left to right. So if you have your head tilted, all the photos are kind of disorientating to view. Another thing that we've kind of learned is that there's no orientation metadata in the photos with this camera. So there's this thing called EXIF. It is essentially just the metadata of the photos. So it does not know where you're looking when you're taking the photos. It has the GPS coordinates, but it doesn't know where it's looking. And that's important for some workflows. So yeah, so the kind of the pros and cons of doing it yourself. You get full control of the process and images, which is nice. I can organize it exactly how I want it to be. It's flexible in the sense that I have all these photos. I can do what I want with them and bring them into different systems. The only downside is that, yeah, some of the photos aren't going to have the metadata that you want. But yeah, continuing organized in a GIS data set, so I can have all of those attributes there. Data collection is fun. It's fun to do. I like doing it. You have more control over what camera you're using and what areas you can access. So if you're hiring a company to like take a bunch of photos, they're probably going to be doing it in a car, and they're not going to be able to access skinny little trails or mountain bike areas. So this just kind of gives us more control over what we can do. And I mean, the cost is lower, maybe not so counting all the trial and error I've gone through all the years, but still hypothetically lower cost. Cons, it's a lot of work to organize 100,000 images, especially if you don't do the organizing at the beginning of the process. I did it at the end and it was horrible. But creating a workflow, making it so everyone uploads their images in the same spot, and then I essentially have Python look at that folder, and then I organize it into a folder structure, and then run geoprocessing tools to bring it into a GIS database. So now it's nice. But if you don't do that organizing at the start, then it's a big pain. So yeah, a lot of testing is required, and some things just won't end up working how you think they will. As you'll kind of see when we go through what I've produced, it's not a true tour experience if you've just got it as attachments in a GIS database. I have a plan for it, but it will take time for me to get there. Storage requirements, if there's an issue storing that many JPEGs, and it's going to be like triple this amount. So it's 100,000 images for all the original ones. And then if you do any processing, then you got to store those duplicates. And then storing them as attachments in a SQL database requires storage too. So that's another duplicate. So it does add up. Just some worthy things to mention here is there's a lot more expensive cameras that you can use. We're using those cheap GoPro cameras because they're easy to get a hold of, and we feel that it's more worthwhile to capture a ton of images now than waiting till we can get our hands on a camera that will have the metadata that we want, have better image quality. Yeah, this is kind of the cameras that we've looked at, though. If you're familiar with Trimble or their distributor, Frontier Precision, you can probably get your hands on a Trimble MX7 for renting or for hiring someone to do it on top of a car. So these are all pretty big cameras. I would say the only two that you could put on a pole on your back or yeah, would be like the Mosaic 51 or the Insta360 Pro 2. I never got Insta360 to ever email me back, so I haven't looked into that one too much. But these are kind of the cameras that we've been looking at expanding to. And I'm not going to go through every single virtual tour company out there. There's so many, and they rise and fall just like that. And they pivot a lot, and they start doing new things. But some worthwhile mentions, GeoCam, Cyclomedia. These are companies that will take photos for you and host the photos for you. So we had looked at them before. Google Street View obviously is something that is probably pretty easy to upload your images to, especially if you're doing just like a small amount. Problem is you have to like upload from your phone. Can't upload from your computer. At least I haven't figured out how. It's very annoying. Qpix we've looked at before. They've kind of pivoted to construction. So uploading scans and photos for construction uses. They've gotten better over the years, I think. So worthwhile looking at. And then bringing it all together. Finally, I just want to show you what we have produced after 6 years of work. And yeah, hopefully it gives you a good idea of what you can do with that technology. So what we have done is we created a product offering that we are calling Viper for staff. So what we've marketed it as is virtual indoor portal with extended reality Viper. We're a park district, we like animals, so acronyms are going to be animals. Essentially an initiative to improve the ease of access to critical data. As the system matures, access to 3D and 360 images will become the norm. So essentially what we're doing here is that we're marketing it and making it so that staff only have to go to one place and they just need to know one term to understand what we're talking about. So that's why we did that. And then I'm going to show you Viper. So you might have seen it pop up there. So this is all built with ArcGIS Hub. Shout out to Amanda Huber. So this is essentially a one-stop shop for people to go and access virtual tours and data outputs for building trails and outdoor spaces. So I won't show you all of this. I have some picked out for you to show you, but here's an example. Here's the buildings page. So we've got instructions at the top. We have a web map essentially where you can search, or you can just scroll to a virtual tour that you want to access. And they'll have all the information here, and you can click view data here. And it'll give you 3 options that you can access. So these are items in ArcGIS Online. They're just, I think they're called applications in ArcGIS Online. So you can essentially just put a link in ArcGIS Online and it'll be an item. And then we put tags and categories on it so that we can just filter it here based on what you clicked on this page. So I'll kind of show you, I'll show you virtual tour in a different one, but I'll show you plans here. So essentially what this is doing is it's bringing you to the floor plans in a SharePoint document library. And we're able to do that really easily using, what would you call them, columns. So attributes for each of these files. So they have an attribute of the building ID and plans, so you're able to access it. Because it's being recorded, I'm not going to show you the floor plan, but and then we also have photos. So auto-generated is a bunch of photos that we just store in SharePoint as well. And then just a nice little dashboard that links to those ArcGIS Online items as well, and shows you what we have planned, and then just, yeah. So that's Viper, and I'll show you a few other like more detail way about how we're doing it. So the virtual tours that we're creating are we like them a lot. So they've got a lot of customization options. So we're able to give it to one of our interpretive teams and they can build something out of it, or it can just be a simple tour. You can see these little white spaces on the bottom. You can walk to them easily. They're intuitive. Images are pretty good, so you can actually probably zoom in and read this. You can also put on sorry, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but goggles to be able to view it in VR. VR goggles, that's it, sorry. And here's one of our newer tours using the newer camera that we purchased. So since we can do outdoor spaces, we're kind of going crazy. We're capturing playgrounds, we're capturing campgrounds, and these are working really well, and we're really happy with these. And I gotta pull up something here. I wanted to show you some of the kind of stuff that you're able to do with 360 images. So here's just everything that I've brought into a GIS database for 360 images. So the backbone of this is a tool called, I think, I'm doing this all in Python, but I'm essentially using this geoprocessing tool. Geotagged photos to points, and then I'm bringing it all together into a single database. And just simple straight off the bat, without any other research done, you can have users view images within Pro 360 images. So let me just show you a few examples of that. So here's an image that I had a volunteer capture because I cannot cross-country ski. So I had volunteers do it. But oh yeah, I probably went a little quick there. But here's the attachment. But if you, this is relatively new. If you click open in 360 image viewer, you can view it right here in Pro, which is super useful. Just change it up between winter. This was just a few weeks ago. I captured Carver Park Reserve's new mountain bike course, which was really cool. Yeah. How's that? And I'll show you. So I talked about Mapillary a little bit, that company that's owned by Meta. So they have actually pretty powerful tools in here. So if you upload your images, you get right away, you get a way to view them. So And I'm eventually hoping to use Mapillary more. It's just if I have 100,000 images and I don't want every single image to go, and we need it to go through a review process, and who has the time to review all those images. So there's a few things to work out, but one thing that's really nice about Mapillary is that you can have it just kind of go, and it works really well. Mapillary also has automatic feature extraction, so I forget exactly how to do this. But yeah, it's automatically collecting traffic signs from your images. So if I clicked on this one, it'll show you the images that it got it from these. So these are from me. So it was able to identify it from these 3 different images. And then it's without too much additional work, you can bring all of your images from your GIS database into a browser. So this is built using Experience Builder. And that website I am using called Penellum. So essentially what Penellum is that you give it access to a publicly accessible image. It's not hosting it. You're just giving it a URL. So you're essentially just using a URL parameter. You're giving it the attachment ID back in your portal or whatever. And it can render it as a 360. And it's was not too much work to do, and it works quite well. So I'm very excited to start releasing this to staff very soon. So yeah, just an experience builder with a selection that generates an embedded viewer. Works pretty well. I think that's all I wanted to show. Let me get back to the presentation here. So how we used it, I kind of showed a little bit of this already, but we're creating virtual tours for staff. Those staff can use it to preview a space and save time on travel. You can use it for training. We've had, oops, little click happy. You can use it to measure things directly in the tour. So yeah, we've used that a few times. And so space planning needs, if you have a renovation coming up, your maintenance staff can use that, and you can use it to kind of plan events. So we've used it for documenting spaces. So we had a spat of break-ins in 2020 at the landing, and they were able to use the virtual tours that we made to document all the things that were missing. And then create virtual tours for the public. So create things for reservations so people can preview what they're reserving. Like I showed you, we created a playground tour. You can do it for nature centers and visitor centers. You can do it for inaccessible buildings so that buildings that you have closed, you don't have the staff available to allow public to go into those buildings, or just buildings that somebody in a wheelchair couldn't access or something like that. You can make it available to them by creating a virtual tour. And interpretation, I kind of showed you that with one of the historical buildings that we scanned. Interpretive teams can create a narrative around it and create a really good virtual tour experience. And then data collection in isolated areas. So this is kind of a big use of the 360 as the 360 images me and volunteers are collecting along trails. So as we kind of said, we're expanding asset collection through Cartograph. And if somebody can just go in and view a 360 image to view what kind of material a fence is made out of, then it's 100 times faster than going out there and looking for yourself. And we're going to be diving into signs in Cartograph here. And I'm excited for people to be able to utilize these 360 images for that. And then what's next for us? Well, drones. Hopefully we'll come up with a use case here and we'll play with that a little bit more. I've been really interested in photogrammetry. I've done it a little bit in my backyard. I did that of my house. I think it has some use cases. We want to be able to make a 3D base map. We want a better 360 camera so we get that orientation metadata. Oriented imagery is improving, and if we have that orientation metadata, we can directly collect images or collect data through those images. So if you saw a fire hydrant in an image in oriented imagery, you could just click on that fire hydrant and a point would get made in a feature class. So that's kind of cool. AI and deep learning workflows, if we have all these images, maybe we can get something useful by using AI. We could just get that data from Mapillary too that I kind of showcased. I want to be able to put custom logos on the bottom of all of our images, but so many images and I gotta create an automated way to do that. I just want to be able to brand our images. I think that would be a really nice addition. And then Mapillary has this thing called Mapillary JavaScript, and they have integrations with the Esri JavaScript API. So you can essentially bring over everything that Mapillary has to offer into a custom web map application. And I want to be able to do that for our main website and bring those 360 images from Mapillary directly into our website like that. I think that would be really cool.